Did you catch it? Do you see the one mistake that I made that ultimately cost me probably a lot of effort on this stage? But here's another glimpse. So let me know if you catch it. So welcome back to another episode of the Flamme Rouge Racing. This is stage 5 where we get into Sprinter's Paradise. 4 back-to-back sprints and finishing off with the Mayan climb. And boy, oh boy, did I feel like I made a mistake at the end of this. If you noticed in the beginning, in the intro, the wheels that I'm on are the NV78s. And I've been struggling with that decision all day long, thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Should I change to discs? Should I not change to disc? And while I do feel like the wheels helped me on the hilly parts of this stage, I'm going to fast forward this to the sprints and basically just cover the sprints because the rest of this race is the group ultimately staying together. And while I feel like that having these wheels helped me get through the hillier parts of this stage, when we get to the sprints, you'll see exactly why I feel like it may have been a mistake. So here we go. So here we are coming up to the Woodland Sprint and just about ready to launch, putting the pressure on over 1,000 watts, spike up to 1,065. And as I shoot through the group, I get to the front and it's just me and this other rider who are just flying through as we hit the sand. Another rider starts to come up behind me, Mr. Crayon Eater, who again has been a fantastic racer, but you see I start to fall flat about 100-ish meters shy of the end, maybe a little bit less. And while you may not have been able to see it in the video that was captured, what basically happened is I got to the front so early that it was me versus no drafting, no aerodynamics whatsoever. And ultimately, I had to put out a lot more power to just keep my momentum going than I was able to do. And so while these sprints are not as long as some of the later sprints, they're still pretty tough. And so I'm going to jump forward again to the next sprint so you can see this happen all over again. So here we are on the Sasquatch sprint. As we cross that bridge, I know that I'm about 400 or 500 meters away. I usually like to launch as the slope starts to come down this hill. And so I'm getting into the higher gears. My legs are still burning from the last sprint because it really wasn't that long ago that we were sprinting. So I start to launch from the middle of the pack. And again, as I come to the bottom of the hill, I am all the way on the front, getting the maximum amount of resistance possible. I pushed a little bit harder this time, knowing that we're going uphill, where my choice in wheels probably did give me an advantage, but as you can see, I ease up, 50-ish meters maybe from the finish. And again, another, come in, looks like 14th place on this one. So I'm, hovering in the top 10 range, 10, 15 place, which not bad, but at the end of the day, it wasn't perfect. And this is, after this sprint, is really where I started thinking about, did I choose the wrong wheels? did I make a mistake by staying with the NB wheels, even though I feel like it helped me, especially through this part of the forest where, we're going up and down. It's, a couple percentage. The group itself basically pushed so far past me after the sprint that I was having to, fight to keep up. And having the lighter weight wheels, I feel like did help. But then again, I don't know if having the disc wheels and the aerodynamic advantage that they come with would have also allowed me to keep up with the group, since these hills are very draftable. So again, I'm going to jump to the next one so we can talk through this all over again. So as we get to the Acropolis sprint, my legs are hurting. Even though we had quite a little bit longer gap between the previous sprint and this one, my legs are on fire. So I give it a go. You can see I spike up to about 900 watts, which is obviously not close to my max, but I was in pain. This sprint being a little bit more downhill, I figured I'd have a little bit better advantage not having to worry about so much resistance from going uphill or from being out in the wind. And ultimately, I end up putting a little bit of extra pressure at the end, but I really didn't fight as hard as I normally would. And so I come across the line and end up in eighth place on this one. So again, staying within that, top 10 range. But at the end of the day, it's not the performance that I was hoping for myself, knowing that this was a stage really for sprinting, and that's really all I have to offer for this stage race, is to, just be as good of a sprinter as possible. So I'm going to fast forward to the last sprint, which, as you can tell from the mini map, really isn't that far away. So as we start approaching the Stoneway sprint, the group is starting to pick up pace, and right now, we're hovering in the mid 200s, and then, creeping up into the low 300s. I, get a little bit of a break as we start to get to the initial start of the sprint, catch into the group, which allows me to draft a little bit more and kind of ease off a little bit. But as the sprint is about to start, all I'm looking at is this is the last sprint we have to do. I know this is a long sprint, and so I give it, the because I start from the back, I give it a little bit more power. I, spike up to the 800s, which just shows exactly how tired I was. I start to drift forward into the front group, and we form this little cluster that, rather than me trying to sprint through them, I just held on and, gave it a little bit of extra fight so that way I can kind of continue pushing forward, because these sprints are fastest through the segment points. They're not first across the line. So at the end of the day, as long as I can, compete in the fastest through the segment, which you can see I crossed the line in second place. And for a final sprint on this stage, I was exceptionally happy with that, because that ultimately, gave me the reassurance that I could still perform even after these back to back to back sprints. And this being such a long sprint, I knew I wasn't going to be able to hold my max wattage for the full distance. And so I'm glad that, it just shows it wasn't just me that was hurting on this sprint. So we're just about getting ready to get to the Mayan climb. And that was an absolute, it felt terrible. You see the group in front, they start to pull away a little bit, and then I kind of catch back on. I feel like everybody just, took a pause as we started approaching the turn for the sprint, or for the climb rather, because I ended up going from just behind the group to pulling forward and kind of coming off the front. And at this point, I have nothing else to lose, so I was just gonna put the effort that I had left. Even though my heart rate's in the 160s, I'm at this point I'm done. I'm completely, you know, drained of energy. While my typical nutrition plan did, help me perform in these back-to-back sprints, I left nothing in reserve for this climb. But I will say this is where again, the reason why I kept the NB wheels was specifically for this last climb because I knew that I could draft through the sprints and allow that to get me good placing in the fastest through the segment, as well as keep up on the hills. But once we got to this climb, it was a reassurance that I made the right choice. Even though you see everybody else on the discs and a lot of others on the discs, there were some people that, were on the either uh, zipped deep dish wheels or the NB wheels. And so you see, I'm holding about, mid 200s, low 300 watts. I start to ease off a little bit because I'm in pain at this point. I really, as much as I want to put a fight with this front group and do the best that I can on this climb, I had literally nothing left. So I'm just doing what I can to, stay with the group, but ultimately they start little by little pulling away on this turn, especially on this, 4%. You see them starting to edge up just a little bit, second, 2 seconds ahead. We round this corner that spikes up to almost 8%, and they start to create a little bit more of a gap. And as my avatar kind of gets away from them and really gets into the zero draft and, basically all the resistance possible for this climb, I just start feeling like at this point, I've got to do my best to maintain, my FTP pace and just get across the line when I can. I'll rest in the easier bits, kind of push a little bit hard on the harder bits. But at this point, I'm looking to just make it to the line. I'm in, 23rd place, 22nd place. I keep bouncing back and forth. I was hoping to, you know, overtake the person that just passed me. But as you can see, my wattage starts to drop again and then spike back up. And it's again because I'm literally draining everything out of me as we start getting to the last part of this climb. And so as a person starts to pull away in the distance, I kind of made that resolve in my mind that, all right, I'm in 23rd place. That's where I'm going to finish and just keep putting the wattage down to try and make it to the top since I'm so close. Staying in the mid 200s, mid to upper 200s. I am looking at the people coming up behind me and seeing that they're only the few meters back, which means if I don't keep at this pace, then they're definitely going to pass me, and I'm going to lose a couple more spaces. But I'm also trying to not fall so far behind that I continue to drop in the GC battle. And so as this person passes me and then this next person goes, I'm like, all right, I can't let myself fall that far behind. So I do my best to keep up with this person as we get to, this last, 4-ish, almost 5% section. As I start to pass them, I'm looking at, okay, I can put a little bit more pressure. We're not that far away from the flat part. So as long as I can kind of maintain my wattage where I'm at in the low 300s, then when we get to this flat part, if that person is tired enough, like I am, then we can coast. But as you see, they start to pass me. And that was it for me. I shifted up into my 53 tooth chain ring and just put that last little bit of effort to the line. I'm looking at the person coming up behind me and I see their name getting closer and closer, but I'm thinking, okay, I could just make it to the banner and I know I'll be fine. I knew that the finish was just past the banner, but I thought if I could coast from the banner to the finish line, I would be good. But that person, caught up and passed me real quick. So at the end of the day, I finished in 26th place, and boy, oh boy, was I tired. This was the first time that I can say I finished a race where I legitimately felt like I was going to vomit. I don't really ever feel like that when I finish a race. Now, again, I'm not doing this on a high carb, style. I, haven't had any carbs really, other than what's in my protein shake, which is about in total it's 10 grams because 5 grams per shake, and I drink two shakes after my ride. and that's it. That's all I'm having as far as carbohydrates go. And so, being in ketosis, I really felt like I completely drained every ounce of energy out of me. And, once I got done and, cleaned up, showered, all that stuff, I just had that, sinking feeling of like needing to vomit. My legs were shaking. Like I was just done, absolutely done. But another great race. We got a rest day for Thursday, which I don't know why I didn't notice previously, but um, when I did notice today, I was very happy, especially after this race. I was very happy that we got that extra rest day. And then it's off to 3 days of more of these sprint segments with some much, much harder climbing. So I will catch you guys on the next installment.